Hi, and welcome to A Sense of Wellness podcast, inspiring and empowering a healthier you. I'm your host, Susan Greeley, and I'll be diving deeper into the 4 pillars of wellness: sleep, exercise, nutrition, and stress management. Today, I'll be talking about why sleep is so important for our health and how sleep problems are related to obesity and other chronic health issues. We will also talk about using behavior change rather than medication to help improve sleep and lose weight as a result. My guest today is Dr. Michael Grandner, and he is an expert in the area of sleep and health. Dr. Grandner is the director of the Sleep and Health Research Program at the University of Arizona. He is the director of Behavioral Sleep Medicine Clinic at the Grandner University Medical Center and is an associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Arizona College of Medicine. In addition, he is a faculty member of the Neuroscience and Physiological Sciences graduate interdisciplinary programs. Dr. Grandner's research focuses on how sleep and sleep-related behaviors are tied to cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity, neurocognitive functioning, mental health, and longevity. So I will welcome and thank Dr. Grandner for being with me here today. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, this is so important. So many people struggle with sleep and weight, all of these chronic health issues. So you are so highly published. You've been published in over 175 articles, I believe, cited 8,000 times or more. You give lectures and presentations. And I believe you published the first sleep and health textbook, which is over 5. Right. So you have a lot of research out there, Michael. I'm hoping to pare it down and focus on the key areas of sleep and weight loss in particular. I mean, look at the country now. We have so much obesity and people reaching for medications. I'm not going to diss medications, but I know you really focus on behavioral health.
Yeah. I mean, so it's important to remember what sleep is. Sleep is something that evolution figured out a very long time ago as a way for an organism to adapt to its environment. This is why most of the advances in the genetics of sleep in the past decades started out in fruit flies. It's actually fruit fly genetics where we discover these things, and we look for it in other mammal systems, and that's where we find it in humans. That's how we know where to look, because their sleep system is shockingly similar to ours. I mean, there's people who are studying sleep in microscopic organisms, in jellyfish that don't even have brains. I mean, sleep is something that seems to be fundamental, where anytime there's some sort of organism that wants to adapt to its environment, sleep seems to be really important. And so why? It seems like that we can't do everything all the time. That's inefficient. It's inefficient for our body, or every cell in our body to be sprinting all of the time. When that happens, life is short. For survival, for adaptation, for optimization, which is where we're getting into sort of some of the weight issues, we need to be able to take in information, sort through that information, and make good use of it. And not just facts information and memory, but also our experiences and physical experiences. That's why when you talk about working out, when you're exercising, you're not building muscle. When you're exercising, you're actually straining yourself. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is you build back better. And when does that building back actually happen? Not while you're working out. It's while you're sleeping. It's when you're disconnected from the environment. It's much easier to change your car's oil while you're not still driving. It's just more efficient that way. So again, evolution figured this out a long time ago. And that's why sleep is so important. That's why it's connected with so many different things. Anytime you think about something in your body that needs to regulate a process, control a function, manage communication between different systems so that your liver knows when to produce cholesterol, so that your blood vessels have the cholesterol circulating in your blood to repair damaged cell walls, and your immune system knows it has to be regulated to time the healing and recovery, and all these things are happening in concert with each other. There's many different instruments in the orchestra, and they're all sort of doing their own thing, but they have a rhythm to themselves so that maximize optimization. And it's a very iterative process where each night we take a step back, do work that we can't do while we're engaging with the environment, and then start a new day. And That's why sleep is important. That's why sleep touches all these different systems. But that's also why it's related to so many outcomes that we care about. It's not the only thing that impacts the immune system and weight and metabolism and brain function and memory and emotion, but it does impact all of them.
Yeah. It seems such a simple thing that we are designed to sleep, yet so many people struggle with it kind of in a desperate way. So I want to ask, right? Like, what is, in your opinion, or in your research, I should say, the most important aspect of your day-to-day habits that impact sleep?
The most important thing, I would think, among many important things, the most important thing, I think, is the mindset and the way that people see sleep. I've got a colleague, we were talking about this, and he said, you Americans, you guys are so capitalistic about your sleep. I said, what does that mean? He's like, you're trying to squeeze all the productivity you can out of sleep. And you want to sleep as little as possible, as efficiently as possible. And this isn't a factory. This isn't an assembly line. It's not about optimizing efficiency, because the world doesn't work that way. When you squeeze things, they break. They don't get faster and better. Squeeze things a little bit, they get faster and better. Squeeze things too much, they break. And so the way to think about sleep isn't, how do I get by on less? And some people are fine. Your sleep doesn't need to be perfect to be perfectly fine. If it did, we would have died out a long time ago. We sleep in very comfortable beds, in walls that are climate controlled, on safe streets for many of us. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't. I mean, even if you're in a war zone, you still have to sleep. But on average, especially in our society, humans have the opportunity to sleep way more comfortably than we have for most 90-something% of human experience. And they all slept fine. It's good enough to get us here. And so that I think the one thing to impart is that sleep doesn't have to be perfect. But the mindset that that sleep is unproductive time, that sleep is something you want to get over with as quickly as possible, that sleep is a waste of time and energy, and sleep is the opposite of work, especially in our society. I mean, there's nothing worse than unproductive time. And because we always feel like we don't have enough. So sleep is seen as a cost. The most important thing, you asked me, what's the most important thing? The most important thing is changing your view of sleep as, instead of being a cost that you're trying to minimize, it should be an investment in yourself that you're trying to optimize. Not necessarily maximize, but optimize. So the way I see sleep isn't how much time do I have left at the end of the day after I'm done. That's a very paycheck to paycheck way of living with sleep. And I think a lot of people operate that way. They sleep paycheck to paycheck of how much do I have left? How many coins do I have left in my pocket at the end of the day to spend on sleep? And that's all I get. The way I think about my own sleep is, okay, what time do I have to get up in the morning to do whatever I need to do to get ready to do what I need to do? Okay, how much time do I need to budget, given that every human wakes up at least once, a couple times during the night or whatever, maybe for a few minutes? Like, given the time it takes me to fall asleep and whatever time I might be awake during the night, how much time do I need to budget for sleep to be able to wake up at the time that my body wants to because it's sufficient? And then what time do I need to get to bed to be able to fall asleep at that time? And when do I need to start winding down so that my body and my mind can be ready for sleep at the time that I get into bed? You don't need a morning alarm. If your body's getting enough sleep, and most of the time, you may not need a morning alarm. If you have an evening alarm of, okay, now's the time to put down the large electronic devices and prepare your seats for landing, so you pave the way so that your mind and body are ready to get into bed. And if you change how you think about sleep to seeing sleep in that way, you're ready. You've got your needs met, whatever they happen to be.
Mm-hmm. It's so fascinating. And I think that that's the key area right there, that lead up time to sleep that people don't think about. And Michael, I see this all the time in the work I do. They are watching TV until very late, going back to the kitchen. So it's that combination, and it is so pervasive and insidious that you want to snack, you want to keep munching. But how detrimental is that late night snacking and TV watching to sleep and weight? I mean, we really have to get people there You know,
So there's two things. There's the TV watching, which is really, it could be any screens. I mean, it's distraction.
Yeah.
It's distraction, and then there's also eating. So a lot of times people get into bed and they say, well, I just can't turn my mind off.
Yep.
So I need more relaxation time or whatever during the night. Well, to me, that sounds like someone's driving and they say, like, I want to stop at this intersection, but my car just keeps going, further than I want it to. And so then I say, well, okay, how fast were you driving and when did you start slowing down? And they'll say, well, I was going 100 miles an hour and I slammed on the brakes 2 millimeters before the stop sign. And they'll say, well, there's nothing wrong with your car. There's nothing wrong with your brakes. The stop sign didn't come too soon. It didn't just jump out at you. You knew it was there. But now you're in the middle of the intersection, and it's because you didn't give yourself the time and space you need to be ready. And so the answer to that isn't distraction. A little bit of distraction is probably fine, but we tend to over distract ourselves because we feel entitled to it. We feel like we're so on during the day. We need a time to be able to not be on. But distraction isn't relaxation. Distraction is just sort of hits pause. It's not an active process. And what we need a little more is relaxation and a little less distraction. I mean, how many hours of just sitting there being distracted do you think you need to be rested? Distraction, a little bit is fine, but we don't need that much. And so what I would say is that you want to give yourself enough time before bed where you're not totally distracted, where you can process all the stuff for the day, write stuff down, think things through, slow down your mind, slow down your body, slow down your breathing, be physically and mentally relaxed. So by the time you're in bed, you're ready for sleep, not starting your wind down process, which is what people do in sleep, which creates insomnia, makes it worse. Doesn't mean you have to sit there on the couch and meditate for an hour. But I mean, if you're going to have the TV on, a good rule of thumb is this too distracting? Well, if I asked you to turn it off now, would you be able to? If I said, turn it off now. If you would say, no, 5 more minutes, it's too engaging. You can watch something kind of mindless at night, but if it's that engaging to you, it's not helping you wind down. So and then in terms of the food, yeah, usually you don't need to eat within a couple hours of bed. Your body doesn't need it. First of all, if you find yourself getting really hungry all of a sudden, there's that fourth meal that people start craving at night. If that happens, look at the clock because your body thought you were supposed to be asleep already, that you weren't supposed to be hungry. Next time, be in bed by now. You don't actually need that meal. Your body's confused and it thinks it's time for another meal, but it's not. It's actually time for bed. That little bit of hunger usually won't interfere with sleep too much. If you think it's going to, fine. If you're going to have a light snack, I mean, best snack is no snack. But if you're going to have a snack, probably something higher fiber, higher protein, a little bit of sugar. Otherwise, it's not going to feel satiating. A little bit of carb, a little bit of sugar, but as little as you can get away with. You don't need calories. Your body may think you need calories. You really don't. And one of the hypotheses as to why, everyone knows that when you're asleep, your body burns through your calories. It's restful. It conserves energy. Not much energy. Your body is still pretty busy while you're sleeping. It's just your muscles aren't moving. There was a bunch of studies now where they look to see what happens when you keep people up and they get hungry is what happens. And they tend to consume an extra 350 to 600 extra calories during wakefulness when their body wanted to be asleep. And one of my favorite studies that did this, they carefully controlled sleep opportunity and they dropped people down to 4 hours a night for 5 nights. And they gained 2 pounds by eating an extra 500-600 calories a night. And it was all at night. All the extra calories were at night when they were supposed to be in bed.
That's incredible. So that alone is what I see in people's lives frequently where they fight sleep, Michael. They fight going to sleep. They stay hungrier, and then they're hungrier. So they put themselves right into this whole vicious cycle of their own doing.
Don't fight sleep. Sleep is your friend. Sleep is a joy. Sleep is good for you. Sleep is something that's trying to help you. Sleep does a lot of good for you. And trying to minimize it isn't doing yourself favors. And actually, it doesn't even buy you more time. No. Where what's happening is it decreases your efficiency. And one of the things we find is that if you look at work productivity, and you take someone who's sleeping 7 to 8 hours versus someone who's sleeping 5 to 6 hours, the 7 to 8 hour sleeper gets more done because they're able to work more efficiently than the tired person who thinks they need to squeeze out more wake time. It's not about time. It's about efficiency, productivity, and focus. And if you're less able to focus and you have to take more breaks and you're doing things more slowly or you're making more errors, well, that's going to slow you down. Setting yourself to be even worse by staying up extra late to get more stuff done doesn't help.
Key question. So about quality versus quantity.
Yes.
I hear people say that like their whole lives, they've never slept long, 5 hours max, things like that. Is there truth in the fact that they can be sleeping for a short duration, but it is high quality?
Well, duration and quality is similar to food, where, okay, you can eat really nutritious food, but if you're not eating enough of it, it doesn't matter. Like you're not getting what you need. Or you could be eating plenty of caloric intake and energy, but it could be nutritionally deprived. And ideally, you want both. And it's the same way with sleep. Like you can get enough sleep and it can be shallow and poor quality. Or you can get less sleep and it can be higher quality. But either way, neither is as good as sufficient quality and sufficient quantity. So why choose one? Both of them have risks. And actually, they do both have risks. So get insufficient quantity is more reliably linked with. So I should take a step back. When you sleep deprive someone down from 8 hours, say, to 6 hours, for a few days, they start feeling impaired. After about 4 or 5 days, they think they're adjusting. Objectively, they're still impaired. They actually get worse over time. They become more and more impaired over time on average. Not everybody. Again, there's a difference between a population and individual. At the population level, on average, people who are dropped down to 6 hours, they just get worse and worse and worse, and the deficits just kind of keep building and accumulating. But people feel like they're leveling off. There are people who are fine, who you could sleep deprive and they hang in there great. But actually, there's no reliable test to figure out if you're one of those people yet, besides sticking you in a lab for a couple of weeks and measuring you. There are some genetics where people with certain genes might be more likely to be less vulnerable, but it's not reliable yet. It's not, the science isn't there yet. So there's a curve. Most people probably need 7 to 8 hours, at least 7 hours, 7-ish hours of pretty good quality sleep to be optimally functioning. Some people might need more. Some people probably don't need as much. But chances are you're more likely to be in the middle than unusual. And even if you think you're fine, that's the thing I want to mention. Even if you think you're totally fine, chances are you have no idea how impaired you really are. The best way to tell is get a couple of nights of 7 to 8 hours of good sleep. Now tell me how you feel and see objectively what you're doing. I mean, we looked at some drowsy driving data showing that people who were getting 6 hours or less were about 3 times as likely to nod off at the wheel. And then when we restricted the data to only the people who said they are totally 100% well rested, there were 0 nights of the past 30 days they didn't get enough rest or sleep. Still, if they were sleeping 6 hours or less, they were 3 times as likely to be nodding off at the wheel. How well rested they felt had no bearing on their actual objective performance. They felt more well rested. It didn't matter. And that's the problem. I wish there was a way. If someone walks in my door and they say, I'm sleeping 5.5 hours, but I feel totally fine.
Right.
Am I? I have to say, what I usually say is, well, how you feel actually doesn't correlate with outcome. Am I fine for what? And maybe that's enough for your immune system. Maybe it's enough for your metabolism. Maybe it's enough for your memory. But maybe it's not enough for your attention and focus. Maybe it's not enough for, like, there's so many things that are relying on sleep. That's why on average, people getting 5 to 6 hours they're not all falling apart. They don't all get Alzheimer's and diabetes and everything. And I'm like, well, if you eat nothing but cheeseburgers and pizza all week and you eat nothing but kale and salads on a weekend, that's better than eating nothing but cheeseburgers and pizza all week. I mean, that will definitely help balance out your nutritional profile, but it's not as good as just having just regular balanced meals 7 days a week rather than something. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course. And that's what you work on your daily habits. The daily habits do matter most. And that's what I talk about all the time.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are simply unaware of their own personal daily habits and how they are all tied together. It's like going back to the original thing that you said about your mindset. And we need to talk about that more with sleep in particular. And this has come up in previous podcast episodes I've done. And my daily work is that there is this idea that, it's like a guilty pleasure or guilt is tied to sleep. And I always say, no, sleep. Why? Right. For optimal functioning, sleep is so important. You are investing in your overall health. Like people need to relax more. And then we'll see fewer issues with obesity. Honestly,
I mean, it may be a generation ago, if someone left the office to like go down to the gym or go for a walk or whatever, maybe that was seen as neglecting their duties. And like, but nowadays, like, oh, that person's super healthy. Like we've changed how we look at people prioritizing fitness. It's worth it.
Yeah, no, in the fitness category, absolutely. In this concept of work-life balance, and we all support these healthy activities during the day. However, what I see happening is then come later in the day, people are still looking for that distraction, Michael, instead of and relaxing.
And that's what I'm saying. We should see sleep the same way. Sleep is our ally. Sleep is what helps us be better. Don't try and get as little of it as possible. One of the differences between changing sleep and changing diet is, unfortunately, the way it's set up is part of the problem is changing diet means taking away things that our body was programmed to want because we weren't able to access them, and now we are. If you have someone who's systematically sleep deprived for weeks at a time, and then they start looking pre-diabetic, and then they start gaining weight and all of these things, within 2 nights of an 8-hour sleep opportunity, all of a sudden their levels start normalizing and they feel way better. It doesn't mean they're fully recovered, because if you then start sleep depriving them again, the numbers shoot right back up to almost where they left off. Like it wasn't a real recovery. So that's the bad news. But the good news is it only takes a couple of days for your body to be telling you, yes, please, more of this. This is good. It's sort of like if you had a poor diet and then within 2 days of starting to eat healthier, all of a sudden weight started coming off. And as long as you kept doing that, it would stay off. That's how sleep works. Within a couple of days, you're feeling better, more refreshed, more focused. The benefits start very quickly. They actually do. And if you maintain that sleep schedule, you get to keep those benefits.
Mm-hmm. Thankfully, you see the results.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the problem with weight because it's so slow.
Yeah, it is slow. Okay. Although it
was never a problem in human evolution. Losing weight was not the problem.
Right.
Like that was not the problem that evolution needed to solve. So it solved the other problem by keeping us alive.
And overeating. And having quick and easy, delicious calories surrounding us now. No, it's really addictive. And then you're out for whatever reason late night, and then you go through the drive-through, and
well, that's the late night issue is another one. So one of the things we study in our research program is this idea, we call it the mind after midnight, which is, why is it nobody craves a salad at 2:00 in the morning? There actually seems to be a whole neuroscience that when you're awake, but your body wants to be asleep, you make bad choices.
Yeah.
And your ability to regulate your choices is massively impaired. And there's really nothing you can do about it that we know of yet.
Mm-hmm.
But you are not making good choices. And so far, the only advice I have to give people in those situations is to remind yourself, this is not what I really want. Like, I know I feel like I want this right now, but tomorrow I'm going to be glad I didn't. Because it's the same reason suicides spike in the middle of the night. We've demonstrated this at the population level and over again. Between 2 and 5 in the morning, bad things happen. And it seems to be because our emotional brains are not functioning. They're not supposed to be awake then. I'm not saying they're offline, but they're like functionally offline. They're not working properly. And actually, we're doing some research now specifically around food and what happens in the middle of the night when people who would otherwise eat healthily all of a sudden start making bad choices when they're awake and they should have been asleep.
I think that's most people, to be honest.
Yeah, I think this is a normal thing. This is just how brains work, how human brains work. They protect us from our bad choices by making us unconscious. And when we violate that by making ourselves conscious on purpose, our body's like, no, but you weren't supposed to be here.
Right.
Like you weren't supposed to be awake. And so now like we're not able to protect you from these bad choices.
Yes. I think that applies to anyone and everyone who's ever traveled those time zones.
Yes.
Right?
Totally. Until we can figure out better solutions to it, knowing at least can arm you to be prepared for when it happens, to not listen because it's stupid. You are stupid between 2 and 5 in the morning. You make bad choices. Don't listen to yourself. You're giving yourself bad advice.
I think we need to just admit that, accept very smart people make stupid choices in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Okay. So the main thing that I want to talk about now, since we've established all that, is how to help people without reaching for medication, because I think that that's really your area of expertise. So we're talking about behavior and behavioral therapy. So you have so much research and work on this on a daily basis, helping people. So Michael, however you want to take that, I just want you to explain how and why what's called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia is so effective versus medication.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. Most people would assume sleeping pills work better, but actually for decades, the data shows actually they don't. They work well for a lot of people. There's side effects and issues, but what's interesting is these behavioral techniques for fixing insomnia, again, they don't work 100% of the time, but they work more than the medications do. And that's why every medical organization, even the medical ones, the medication-based ones, if they have a guideline for treating insomnia, to my knowledge, 100% of those guidelines say use CBTI first. Don't even think about doing medications unless you tried CBTI. Don't even bother with it, because CBTI is more likely to work with less side effects, safer, more long-term success. And it doesn't matter if you have fibromyalgia. And the reason it works is because it actually targets the cause of the chronic insomnia, where there's a million causes of short-term insomnia. A million things can keep people awake, whether it's stress, physical, emotional, whatever. But that's what causes chronic insomnia. People mistake the thing that triggered the insomnia with the thing that maintains it. And they're like, I need to get to the root cause of my insomnia. No, you don't. Actually, whatever kicked the ball rolling down the hill no longer matters. Whether it was a shoe or a stick or a baseball bat, don't care. It's rolling now. And what's keeping it going is gravity. And it's not whatever gave it the push. Even if there is still some pain or whatever, that's actually not what's maintaining it. It's gravity now. Gravity has taken over. And the equivalent in the insomnia world of gravity is what's called conditioned arousal. It's the thing that keeps the cycle moving. What conditioned arousal means, co-conditioning is like learning, like Pavlovian kind of, not just Pavlovian, but there's like a learning process. So what happens is, in a nutshell, something causes sleep to be stressful. Then what happens is, over time, sleep becomes predictably stressful. If you keep trying to sleep and are unable to, for whatever barrier is temporarily in the way, that battle becomes predictable. Once sleep becomes predictably stressful, that predictable stress becomes the activation that keeps you awake, where the bed starts becoming the dentist chair, whether you want it to or not, because you're a pattern recognition machine and you're feeding it a pattern and you're learning it. And so now whenever you get into bed or even think about getting into bed, without even your awareness, sometimes you have increased activation and stress because you're anticipating the battle. And that is actually what keeps it going. And so what CBTI does, it's less like, it says therapy, but it's more like physical therapy than psychotherapy. It's actually a training protocol is really what it is. It mostly involves these learning processes and unlearning that process and relearning the bed being something tied to sleep. And so you go from, oh, I'm so exhausted, but I get into bed and I just cannot fall asleep no matter what I do, to, even if I'm a little stressed out, I get into bed, I close my eyes and I can't stay awake. Because the bed, instead of becoming the dentist chair, the bed becomes the thing that triggers a sleep response. It's hacking all of the learning processes that went the other way and actually reprogramming them the correct way.
Mm-hmm. As you were describing all that, I thought I'd be stressed too if I thought I was going to battle instead of
right. Exactly. Oh, and the one thing I should mention, this is not sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene is not CBTI. People confuse these things all the time because they're both non-medical.
Right.
But sleep hygiene is great. It's not treatment. The hygiene is hygiene. Hand washing is hygiene. Sleep hygiene removes barriers to sleep, but it doesn't fix problems. And that's the difference between sleep hygiene and therapy. It's the difference between coaching and therapy. That's the difference between like supplements and medication. Supplements aren't usually there. Like if supplements treated a medical condition, they'd be called medication. They're not. They're to support, they're called structure and function claims. So they're to support natural health. They're not there to treat a condition. And if you have insomnia, that's a condition. Supplements usually are ineffective. That's the thing. What about melatonin? Melatonin's great. All the things that it does, but it doesn't fix insomnia. So it's not great for that. I don't recommend it for insomnia. I recommend it for all kinds of things, but not for insomnia. What about magnesium or these other supplements? None of them have been shown that they can reliably fix insomnia. That's why they're supplements and not medications. And the data are pretty clear about that. But some people say they work great. Okay. Randomness everywhere. Maybe it was a placebo effect. Maybe it did work for you. But on average, it's not something I would predict is going to work. Does that make sense?
Completely. It's the same as saying there really is no one diet to cure obesity. Nobody would be obese if that were the case, right?
Yeah.
But we do know that behavior change works, and it's no matter what, important and necessary to look at our daily behaviors. So just to differentiate again or get more specifics about CBTI, because I want people who are struggling, suffering from true insomnia to know what to ask. They don't even know about it. So say they go to the doctor, like, what does it entail? How do you get started? How long on average would a CBTI program?
The difference between insomnia with a lowercase I and insomnia disorder, think of it like depression. Like depression, it's another one. It's a word. We use it for all kinds of things. I'm feeling a little depressed today. Do I need to see a psychiatrist for long-term treatment? Probably. Most people who say I'm feeling a little depressed today, what they don't mean is I have a clinical depression that requires medical intervention. What they're meaning is like I'm having a rough day and I'm feeling kind of down. Sure. And that will resolve on its own and it's fine. Insomnia is similar where there's a whole spectrum of things it could mean, but we use the word interchangeably. The difference between insomnia that I don't worry about and insomnia as an insomnia disorder is if it's taking you at least a half an hour to fall asleep, or you're up for at least a half an hour during the night or early in the morning trying to sleep and being unable to, and that's happening at least 3 nights a week, and this has been going on for 3 months, and it's causing you problems during the day, that's usually the line. You know, like if you're on the other side of that line, I think it's less likely that these minor things aren't going to work. And a lot of times, even doctors, they start prescribing medications that aren't even for insomnia, like trazodone or mirtazapine, or thiopine, these medications that aren't even for insomnia, but they have sedative side effects. And like, this should help you. And then it doesn't. And then you're all dissatisfied or whatever. It's a thing. But if you cross that line, we call it the 30-33 rule, 30 minutes in the beginning or 30 minutes in the middle, at least 3 nights a week. Cross 30-33 rule. So it's a rule of thumb. It's not official, but that's usually where we draw the line. I mean, if it's 1 night a week and you have terrible sleep, but it's 1 night a week, it's still like your body's you're probably fine. 3 nights a week is usually the cutoff. Doesn't have to be every night. The other thing is, because the official definition is severe and persistent difficulty falling asleep or maintaining sleep, but at least 3 nights a week for at least 3 months, and it's causing significant daytime problems. If you have an insomnia disorder, it's not just a symptom anymore. Once you cross that line, it's not just a symptom anymore. It needs to get its own treatment. And the reason it needs to get its own treatment is because, remember, what's keeping it going is no longer whatever caused it. It's the conditioned arousal. Once you have a conditioned arousal, it's its own thing now. It's gravity is taking over. Treating what caused the push, treating the pain, treating the anxiety, whatever. Well, my insomnia is caused by anxiety. Well, it might have originally been caused by anxiety, and anxiety might be making it worse. It's probably worth treating the anxiety, but it's probably not going to eliminate the insomnia anymore. Because let's say you have no anxiety, but you still have conditioned arousal. You're going to still have insomnia, which is going to make your anxiety worse, because then you're going to feel like your treatment isn't working. Or like, that's why you need to do both. So remember the 30-33 rule. That's a good rule of thumb. Another great one is people can Google the Insomnia Severity Index. It's 7 questions. It was developed at Laval University in Quebec. It is the gold standard thing we use in research to document insomnia severity. It's 7 questions. If you score a 15 or above, that's usually, most of the time, you would be diagnosed with a separate insomnia condition. If it's under a 15, then it's a little like 7, 0 to 7, nothing. Don't worry about it. 8 to 14, mild. 15 and above, it's more clinical. And people can find this online. You can take it yourself, add up the points. If you've got a score on an ISI of 15, oh, I have an ISI of 15. I have a clinical insomnia. Don't stop ignoring this. So that's what patients should be doing. And in terms of treatments, so a lot of people will say, well, I can't get access to a CBTI provider because there isn't enough of them. Well, first of all, there's 2 directories that people should know about. One is the Society of Behavioral Sleep Medicine. That's the main professional organization of people who do this. So behavioralsleep.org. They have a directory, international, wherever you are. Click on your state in the US or click on your country if you're international. It'll list all the people that they have who do it in that area, all the members and people who are doing it and certified. There's also another website, a separately maintained one set up by the University of Pennsylvania, which is just the website, just cbti.directory. And that's also international. You could find somebody. Another thing that a lot of people don't know about is if there's nobody near you, if there's someone in your state, they probably do telehealth. And also there's some great online resources. So the VA, the Veterans Affairs, so they've invested a ton of money into this because veterans have a lot of sleep issues. So people should look for, I think it's called Path to Better Sleep. It's a whole website with all kinds of resources, including self-guided, sort of automated versions of CBTI. There's also books. There's some good self-help books out there. Some of my favorites are Quiet Your Mind and Go to Sleep, End the Insomnia Struggle, and the Insomnia Workbook. Those are all good. There's other good ones too, and I apologize for anyone who I'm forgetting who has another good one. There's other more specific ones. There's one for women, there's one for teens, there's one for people with PTSD, there's one with chronic pain. There's good self-help stuff out there. I mean, there's just a lot of resources. Just a lot of people don't know about it.
That's exactly it. That's why we're having this discussion. This is so helpful, Michael. Thank you for mentioning all this. I wasn't aware of those. With our work, we do offer some CBT programs, and I know about CBTI specifically, but leading people to the actual resources to do it is another story. So this
and the other thing about CBTI I should mention, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but there's some people who say they do CBTI who don't, because they think it's CBT. They think because they do CBT for depression and anxiety,
very different.
That if they're doing that, like if you talk about insomnia, that's CBTI. It's not. Just because someone says they do it. First of all, there's a board certification in behavioral sleep medicine. If they're not board certified, then if they are, then I trust them. If they're not, then ask where they, maybe find out that they really get trained in CBT or did they just take a course one time. But even still, it's not rocket science. They should still be helpful. But if it doesn't work for you, maybe find someone else. Sometimes people are super rigid about it, super by the book, and you need more flexibility. Or sometimes people are just too loose with it. Just because it's not like a medication where you take an Ambien in Iowa, it's the same as the Ambien in New York. Therapy is a little different that way. So it might require trying a couple different.
Right. Thank you. I think that's a very important and helpful point as well. And also getting rid of these geographical boundaries for people.
Yeah.
Too. I know there's so much in this that we could talk about. I know this could be a very long answer as well, but I want to come back to weight loss, because so many people are struggling to lose weight. So let's say you're somebody who struggles with both and really does have insomnia and some weight issues. Would you say it's more important to focus on tackling the sleep issue, and then as a side effect, the weight loss will happen? Or do you not do that? Like, what's your experience with this?
I would say that the main thing, it would surprise nobody that the main contributor to weight loss is diet. And so that should be your primary focus.
But can I interject for 1 second? Since, I speak with so many, this is, my career and working with thousands and thousands of people over many years. It's very hard to break that conditioned late night eating.
Right.
And get them to appreciate how important good sleep is. And so hearing from somebody, like working with me and coaching them to sleep better, it's very hard because they're so conditioned, right, to not sleep. And then
right. And so that was sort of where I was going, was that sleep is an ally. Sleep isn't, well, if I get 8 hours of sleep, all of a sudden I'm going to start dropping pounds. Like, that's not so much how it works. What the sleep does is it sets you up for success. Like, your metabolism is going to be a little more efficient. Your immune system is going to be a little better regulated. Your beta cells in your pancreas are going to be working a little bit better. But the bigger effect, in my opinion, is going to be the mental issue, where you're going to be better able to make healthier choices. You're going to be maybe less fatigued and less tired and craving energy all the time. You're going to be a little more clear-headed. And what it does, rather than, there is some data that suggests that if you sleeping more, sleeping better might directly impact weight management, because we know the sleeping less causes you to gain weight, but it seems to cause the weight gain not just metabolically, but also behaviorally. Mm-hmm. And the behavioral parts might be bigger. Like it's the eating, like you were saying, it's the eating at night. And actually, for people who are eating at night, if you could find healthier options, or just maybe this is your signal, you really should just go to bed. And the sleep sets you up for diet. So it's not just that the sleep is helping you lose weight, it's the sleep that's helping you better regulate your diet. Because and if you're struggling with the eating during the day, maybe improving your sleep will help with that.
Mm-hmm. So we're on the same page. The summary is, it's the whole picture. It's all tied together. And I start with, out of all the wellness pillars, I really do start with sleep.
Yeah.
That's the foundation or the overarching most important pillar, right? Because if you're too tired to exercise, you're not exercising.
Exactly.
And then
it's the thing that sets you up for success or failure. It makes it harder or it makes it easier to do the things that you're trying to do. And sleep is your ally. It's your friend. It's trying to help you. Don't shut it out. Let it.
That we can end right there. Just let it in. Let the sleep be. And do see it as your personal superpower. No, it's so true. So I tell people all the time to lighten up about it as well. Like they get too stressed about it. And I think that lightening up about that, again, but one's mindset towards sleep is really the most important. To solving.
Yeah. Sleep doesn't have to be perfect to be perfectly fine. And this is also for all the people who are tracking all this stuff. I work with a lot of these tech companies and trackers are great. But if it's causing you more stress than it's helping, if you're micromanaging, like, okay, how many minutes of deep sleep did my watch say I got? Like, you're doing it wrong. That's not what it's for. It's there to help you. It's not there to make you more stressed.
That's one of my questions here. Thank you for saying that. We can leave it at that. I think that that's really important. We're in this age of so much data and information and wanting to collect it all. And then what do people do with it? Like you said, if it makes you more stressed out, then don't do it.
A bathroom scale is not a weight loss program.
I want to just point out too the fact that you and I both work on behavior change. We work with human beings, and no matter like all these tools, gadgets, resources, medications, all of that are helpful. And the most important though still is to have that support.
Yeah. Best sleep technology is your own brain.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Okay. So I know we've been chatting for a while.
All right.
This is wonderful. You've given such gems of information here, a lot of wonderful resources. And I think just opening people's eyes and minds to how to recognize their own sleep problems, how it's all tied together for our overall health and functioning. Hey, if we can help society sleep better and decrease car accidents, for example, that alone is just tremendous, isn't it? So it seeps into every aspect of society and functioning. All right. That all said, I want to ask you just some personal daily habit questions.
Sure. I'm pretty transparent.
Yeah. Right. So how do you prioritize sleep and how do you set yourself up for good sleep daily?
Yeah. Like I was saying, I don't set an evening alarm because I don't need to anymore, but I know I think to myself, when do I want to be in bed? And about a half an hour before that, I'll start really putting stuff down in a way and thinking through what I need to clear out. So by the time I get into bed, I actually don't. I used to, when I was younger, like everyone else, I would be ruminating or whatever. And I just don't anymore because I do it ahead of time on the couch. I'm not a big snacker at night because I actually, like, as much as I want to, I usually don't. I'm usually successful at telling myself, you don't need this. This is not going to be helpful. The word helpful, I like that word, but that's what, it's like laying in bed when I can't sleep. Laying in bed is not helpful. If I'm not going to sleep, it's better to get up. So that's what I do. I set myself up to be ready on time. I actually usually don't wake up with a morning alarm. I set an alarm for the latest that I can get up. But if I'm awake, but I usually wake up naturally after about 7 hours. And I know that. So I know there's a little bit of wiggle room to account for some nights. I might be up a couple times during the night if I'm stressed about something, or some nights I'm not. But I'll usually be up after around 7 hours, but I give myself a little more time so that I usually wake up without an alarm. I see it's about time to get up. So I can wake up naturally, and I use that awakening. And so then I'm fine. I don't linger in bed in the morning, and I don't linger in bed at night before closing my eyes. I use the bed pretty much only for sleeping. And so when I get into bed, even if I am kind of stressed or wired or whatever, the bed itself helps put me to sleep. And when I get up in the morning, I get up as quick as I can, get some bright light, get my circadian rhythms awake and set to a daytime signal. And I try not to caffeinate in the afternoon, but also not first thing when I wake up, because it's actually less efficient that way. I don't know. I feel like I don't micromanage my sleep because I don't need to.
Right.
And people are like, well, you work with all these fitness tracker companies. Like, which ones do you wear at night? Actually, I don't wear any of them. I don't need to. I don't need the information. I know what the information I need. I don't need it. Like, I know I sleep fine. I don't need to know how many minutes of whatever I was in because my body takes care of it and I feel fine. I don't need to diagnose any problems.
And that's the best gauge. And that waking up naturally is everyone's sign. I say that, like, how do you know you're well hydrated? Well, your urine is clear, mostly clear.
Right.
Yeah, no, that helps a lot. And then, okay, well, there's just endless questions I could ask.
We could do this again some other time.
We definitely have to do it again because it is probably one of the most common lifestyle issues for people. And again,
especially in our society, it's because it's like fundamental biological requirements for human life. We all need to breathe air or else we'll die. We need to drink water. We need to consume food. You can make a case for shelter or else we'll die to the elements. And we need sleep. And that's pretty much the entire list of requirements. And nobody says drinking water is a waste of time. Nobody says they're going to wait till they retire to find adequate shelter. We don't say, clean air that's for people with too much free time on their hands. Like, we don't say that. But because none of those things are antithetical to our society, which is the problem. Our society sees sleep as a waste of time. And we never have enough time. Time is the thing that we don't have. And we feel like sleep is a time cost, not a time giver. And if anything, that's why I said that's where when you first asked me, what is the number one thing? That's the number one thing, because we have this society that takes one of the foundational requirements of life and devalues it to the point where it's hurting all the other ones.
Right. We have to
for no good reason
do that damage. Right.
Right.
Definitely. So
thank you.
Yeah. Full circle. Exactly. That's the most important point. Okay. As we close out, there's one question that I do ask, I guess, Michael, and that's one thing you are grateful for today.
One thing I'm grateful for today. I am grateful that I live in Arizona, being from the Northeast. I'm glad that even though it's hot, I'm glad that the sun is out, because I always appreciate my natural morning light, and it really helps set the stage for the day. And I'm grateful for that today. Especially, sun came up today. It was nice.
I agree. Well, send us some sunshine. I am still in the Northeast. Quite stormy.
I know. I saw on the news.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I wake up every morning and I do, like, in my head, I may lie in bed for a few minutes and think about what I'm grateful for. That I woke up, that I have a new day. And I'm always grateful for my comfortable bed.
Yes.
So yes. Safe, comfortable place is very important.
Yeah. Yeah. We tend not to think about that. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
One final question. Where can listeners find you?
MichaelGrandner.com. I'm relatively easy to find. They can email me.
Yeah.
I'm on Twitter, Michael Grandner. I'm terrible on Instagram. I'm too old. I'm still trying to figure that out, but I'm also Michael Grandner there too.
All right. I will follow you on Twitter. I don't think I've done that yet, Michael.
Okay.
Well, thank you. This was really, really helpful. And I appreciate your time and being with me today. So
awesome. Thank you.
Stop distracting yourselves from sleep, everybody, and get a good night's sleep.
Yes. Take care. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for taking time to join me and listen to this episode. You can find more information and subscribe to the Sense of Wellness podcast on our website at ccphd.net/sens. This show is brought to you by Castle Connolly Private Health Partners, a concierge medicine organization that partners with and supports exceptional physicians to deliver an unrivaled experience of comprehensive, collaborative, and attentive care for a preventative approach on health and optimal well-being for members. Be sure to listen in next time to the Sense of Wellness podcast, and remember, simple daily habits matter most.